It started with the smell of vanilla and burnt sugar. That familiar warmth clung to the air like a memory, thick and comforting, pulling me into the Academy's kitchen long after everyone else had gone home. Couldn't sleep, couldn't think. My head was filled with pressure. The upcoming final, the constant critiques, the way Chef Luca looked at me like I was never quite enough. So I turned to what always soothed me: baking. I stood over the stainless steel counter, whisking cream by hand, my sleeves rolled up, apron loosely tied around my waist. It was quiet, still, the kind of silence that wrapped around your shoulders like a blanket. Then came the sound that made my body tense instantly, sharp, distinct. Click, click, click. Boots. His boots. I turned, heart already racing. And there he was, emerging from the shadows like he belonged to them. Luca, the head chef, tall, severe, always watching. His hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd only just pulled himself out of bed, or someone else's. His white shirt was undone at the top, sleeves rolled halfway up his forearms, revealing ink and veins and a kind of quiet danger that made my throat dry. He tilted his head slightly. "What are you doing in my kitchen, Julian?" His voice, it was low, like warm bourbon poured over ice. Smooth, intoxicating. "I couldn't sleep," I admitted, awkwardly motioning to the mixing bowl in front of me. "I thought I'd bake something." His eyes flicked to the mess I'd made. Flour on the counter, sugar spilled beside the scale. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, more a smirk that made me feel like I was suddenly standing there in just my skin. "Stress keeping you up?" he asked. I nodded, unsure what else to say. He didn't press me, didn't scold me for being in his kitchen after hours. Instead, he stepped forward and began rolling up his sleeves. "Then let's make something worth staying awake for." I blinked. "You're joining me?" "I don't like cream being abused," he said dryly, motioning to my bowl. "Yours is over-whipped." I should have been embarrassed, but all I could do was watch him. The way he moved, precise, confident. Like every step, every flick of his wrist, was part of some choreography no one else could follow. He passed me the piping bag, our fingers brushing, warm skin on warm skin. I froze. "You're making a mess," he murmured, dipping a finger into the cream. Then he stepped closer. Too close. He raised the whipped tip to my lips. "Here," he said softly. "Taste it." My heart was a drumbeat in my throat. I opened my mouth, and he slid his finger in slowly, deliberately. The cream was cold, but his gaze was fire. He didn't look away. Neither did I. Something shifted. In me. Between us. In that moment, I stopped pretending I didn't want him. Luca didn't just bake. He seduced. Every movement was intentional. Every word, a slow drizzle of suggestion. I'd come into the kitchen craving sweetness, but what he offered was something darker, richer, dangerous. He picked up a small bowl of melted dark chocolate, still warm from the double boiler. Without saying a word, he dipped his finger in and slowly brought it to my skin, tracing a line down the inside of my wrist, just beneath where my pulse beat too fast. "Chocolate," he murmured, watching the glossy trail. "Bitter, bold. It reminds me of you." I tried to laugh, but the sound caught in my throat. His gaze was locked on mine, steady and unnerving. There was no humor in his eyes, only heat. "You're tense," he said softly, wiping the chocolate away with his thumb. Slow, deliberate, like he didn't want to rush a single second. "Let me fix that." I didn't move, didn't speak. My chest was tight, my breath shallow, and still I nodded, small, almost imperceptible. But he saw. Of course he saw. He stepped behind me, his presence magnetic, overwhelming. I could feel the warmth of him at my back, the quiet confidence in the way he moved. His hands brushed my hips as he reached around, pulling a bag of flour closer. We were supposed to be working, cooking, but the air was thick with something else. He rested one hand lightly on my waist, the other guiding mine to the sifter. "Slow," he whispered, his breath hot against the shell of my ear. "Feel it, the texture, the weight." My knees nearly buckled. We sifted together, our bodies in sync, the flour falling like snow. And still he pressed closer, the curve of his chest to my back, his mouth near my neck. It was maddening. "This?" I managed, my voice hoarse, trembling. "This isn't just cooking, is it?" He chuckled, low and indulgent. "No, Julian," he said, his lips grazing the side of my jaw. "This is tasting." And then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was hungry, rough and slow, like he was tasting every corner of my mouth, mapping it with his tongue. I moaned into him, clutching his shirt like it was the only thing anchoring me. He tasted like heat and spice and something that shouldn't have been allowed but felt so right. When we pulled apart, I was gasping, dizzy. He looked down at me like I was a recipe he was only just beginning to understand. "You want more?" he asked, voice like velvet and smoke. My mouth was still tingling from his kiss. "Yes," I whispered, and I meant it. We stumbled into the pantry like drunken thieves, hands roaming, mouths colliding. Luca was laughing, low and wicked, and I could barely breathe for how hard I was wanting him. The moment felt surreal, like I'd slipped out of time and into something entirely made of heat and hunger. He kissed me again, pushing me gently back until the cool metal shelving pressed against my spine. But I didn't care. I barely noticed the discomfort. Not when his lips were on my neck, not when his tongue traced a slow, teasing path down to the collar of my shirt. Somewhere between kisses, he grabbed the bowl of whipped cream we'd abandoned on the counter. I laughed, startled, but the sound was swallowed by his mouth. He dipped his fingers in and smeared a generous dollop along my throat, down to my chest. The cream was cold, his tongue hot. He licked it off in slow strokes, moaning softly like I was the sweetest thing he'd ever tasted. I arched into him. "God," I gasped, my fingers digging into his shoulders. "Luca." He pulled back just long enough to study me. My hair messy, my shirt stained with cream and desire, my breath coming in sharp gasps. And then he lifted me, just like that, like I weighed nothing. He sat me down on the lower shelf, between containers of pasta and industrial-sized cans of tomatoes. I would have laughed again. It was ridiculous, absurd, but the way he looked at me stopped all thought. His pupils were blown, his lips red and glistening. He stared at me like I was everything. "You're not just a student anymore, are you?" he murmured, his hands sliding up my thighs, possessive and sure. "No," I whispered, heart slamming against my ribs. "And you're not just a chef." Something shifted behind his eyes. Something dangerous and hungry and impossibly tender. He leaned in, kissing me with a fire that stole my breath. And then the moment exploded. It was raw, loud, deliciously messy. Shelves rattled behind me as he pushed deeper into the kiss, his hands everywhere, gripping, exploring, claiming. Flour toppled from the top rack, bursting open like snow. A bag of sugar followed. We didn't stop. We couldn't stop. I wrapped my legs around him, pulled him closer. Our bodies moved like they knew a rhythm older than us, a language only we could speak. He pressed his forehead to mine, panting, eyes wild. "You taste like sin," he growled. "You make me forget I ever wanted to be good," I whispered. And then we fell. Literally. The shelf creaked, gave way, and we collapsed into a pile of toppled tins, broken boxes, and each other. I landed on top of him, breathless and laughing, cream in my hair and sugar on my skin. He looked up at me, stunned, then grinned. "What now, chef?" I asked. He pulled me back down with a kiss. "We get messy, eh?" The kitchen was chaos. Sugar dust in the air, clothes somewhere across the room. He bent me over the prep table and I let him. Every stroke, every gasp was another confession. This wasn't just lust. He kissed my spine after lingering. "You're addictive," he said, barely audible. "I know," I breathed. I almost told him I wanted more, that the way he touched me made me feel seen. But he pulled away, silent, guarded again. And just like that, the kitchen felt cold. Morning came like a slap of cold air. The scent of burnt sugar had faded, replaced by the sterile silence of the professional kitchen. Luca was nowhere near me, not in the prep room, not during briefing, and definitely not during the competition rounds. He avoided my gaze like it was dangerous, flammable. His face had gone back to the same impenetrable mask he wore on day one, all jaw and silence and impossible restraint. But me, cooked. I channeled every ounce of confusion, ache, and wanting into what I made. I remade our dessert, the one we created in the thick heat of midnight, when his mouth was on my skin and whipped cream was our second language. Passion fruit for desire, vanilla for comfort, and just a whisper of chili heat that lingered long after it passed. I plated it with hands that trembled. And I won. The moment they called my name, I barely heard the applause. I stood there holding the award like it was someone else's dream. Then I saw him, in the back, arms folded, face unreadable. But I knew those eyes, kissed them shut. The ceremony ended. Lights dimmed. People drifted. Still, I didn't move. I let the buzz fade. Let the congratulations wash over me like water I couldn't feel. Then I turned to leave, and he was there. Luca. He caught my arm, fingers gentle, voice even gentler. Julian. It was the first time he'd said my name all day. I turned to him, the ache sharp in my chest. He looked tired, or maybe haunted. "I lied," he said quietly. "Back there. When I said it was a mistake." My throat tightened. "You didn't have to." "I do," he interrupted. "You weren't a mistake, Julian. You were my favorite recipe. And I ruined it by pretending it was just another dish." I didn't say anything, just watched him, watched his eyes shift, falter, search mine for permission. "I didn't know how to want something I couldn't control," he added, voice cracking just slightly. "But you were never just sugar and cream. You were the whole damn menu." A laugh escaped me, broken and full of disbelief. "Then don't leave it unfinished." His fingers slid from my arm to my hand, interlacing with mine. "Let me try again," he whispered. I looked down at our hands, then back at him, and finally I nodded. We walked out of that kitchen into the pale light of morning, flour still dusting my shoes, his jacket slung over my shoulders. The city stirred around us, unaware that a recipe had been rewritten, not with ingredients, but with risk, longing, and a second chance. And maybe, just maybe, the bittersweet aftertaste was what made it beautiful.